Everything will be fine, Mommy. You're gonna be okay. Please.
Please be calm, ma'am. We can discuss payment options.
Oh my gosh, Vi. $100,000? Oh, for a freaking surgery?
Miss Eva, I presume?
Yes, but call me Eva, please.
I prefer to keep things strictly professional.
$100,000. That's how much you'll pay me.
Okay.
I accept these terms. I signed the contract. I accepted the surrogate job. I met with him today.
You're kidding, right? I can't do this, Eva. You're gonna carry another man's child. I can't.
Please! My mom is in the hospital. We have nothing.
It's over.
Congratulations. You're pregnant.
Goodbye, Eva.
Drowning in my laptop screen, I typed away relentlessly. For the past 2 weeks, all I'd done was hunt for jobs, any job really, just to survive. It didn't matter what kind, as long as it could keep us afloat. My father passed away a month ago, leaving me, my mom, and my 2 younger siblings to fend for ourselves. When the news hit that he had been involved in a car accident and died on the spot, I froze. Some might call me heartless, but the only thought that crossed my mind was, our only source of income is gone. It wasn't that I didn't love my dad. We didn't have a good relationship, and I never truly knew him. He was always away, consumed with work, and gave us little of his time. He didn't allow my mom to work either. He just wanted her to be a full-time housewife. At first, it seemed like it was out of care, but then we realized it was just a twisted means to exert control. And now, with him gone, we were left to suffer. Our savings were dwindling fast. My mom had fallen ill, worn down by the thought of our inevitable struggle. My 10-year-old brother Daniel and 7-year-old sister Sophia were my biggest worry. I couldn't bear the idea of them suffering once the money completely ran out. I sighed and slammed my laptop shut, the headache that had been brewing all day finally reaching a crescendo. I hadn't slept much lately, my mind spinning with a million thoughts, none of which made any sense. Everything was just a mess. "Eva," came Sophia's small voice as she approached me. "I'm hungry." My heart clenched. Her pale face made me want to scream at the world. I mumbled, rising from my chair. I checked the fridge, the cabinets, and the pots. Everything was empty. "Here," I said, digging into my pocket and handing her some money. "Tell Daniel to buy you both some snacks." Her face lit up as she took the money and ran off. Tears welled in my eyes for what felt like the 100th time, but I blinked them away. I made my way to my mom's room. She was asleep. I sat beside her and I watched her carefully. My chest tightened with each passing second. It was hard to believe how quickly everything had fallen apart. We hadn't been rich, but as a middle-class family, we at least had the necessities. We were happy. Now, we were barely holding on. Even in her sleep, my mom looked pale and broken. It shattered me to see her like that. "Please get well soon," I whispered. Her eyes fluttered open. "Eva," she croaked. "Mom, how are you feeling?" I asked softly. She tried to smile but failed, and instead, a tear slipped from her eye. "I'm so close to getting a job, Mom," I lied, trying to sound hopeful. The truth was, I hadn't found anything yet. But I didn't want her worrying more than she already was. "Eva," she began, her voice heavy with sorrow. "Don't worry, Mom," I interrupted, forcing a smile. "I won't do anything stupid or illegal, I promise." She looked at me with eyes filled with worry, but I couldn't let her know just how bad things were. "Just rest. I'll make something for you to take with your medicine," I said. She nodded weakly, not arguing. Once outside her room, all the tears I had been holding back came rushing down. I cupped my hands over my mouth to muffle the sobs. My world was crumbling, and it was becoming harder to hold on. But I couldn't give up. No, I wasn't a child anymore. I was 20 years old. I was an adult. I had to survive this. I would survive this. I reassured myself. I wiped my tears and sat back down, opening my laptop once again. It felt like my only way out. Just then, my phone beeped beside me. It was a text from my boyfriend, Kelvin. "Are you okay? Haven't seen you online today." I sighed. As if I didn't have enough to worry about, now I had to deal with my relationship too. "I'm okay, just busy. Be online soon," I texted back quickly before turning my attention back to the screen. That's when something caught my eye at the bottom of the page. "Surrogate needed." I read the words aloud, my brow furrowing. Curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked on the link. A form appeared on the screen. I was about to close it when I saw the amount of money being offered. $50,000. My jaw practically hit the floor. I didn't know what came over me, but before I realized it, I had filled out the form and agreed to meet up. Tua, what do I tell my mom? What do I tell Kelvin? Oh God, what had I done? Panic washed over me, twisting my stomach into knots. I texted Kelvin, "I'm coming over." Grabbing my purse, I left for his house. The drive was a blur. My heart lodged in my throat the entire time. When I arrived, I had to take a deep breath just to steady myself. "Hey, babe," Kelvin greeted me as he opened the door, pulling me into a tight hug. I wrapped my arms around him, desperate for the comfort of his embrace. "How are you?" he asked, kissing me gently before leading me to the couch. "I'm not fine," I admitted, my voice trembling. "My mom's still sick. She's not getting better, and our savings are almost gone. I haven't found a job yet. I don't know what to do." The words spilt out, heavy and suffocating. My chest ached with the weight of it all. Kelvin took my hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. But you're not alone, Eva. I'm here with you." He brought my hand to his lap, but the warmth of his touch did little to calm my racing heart. I needed to tell him. I had to, but fear gripped me. How would he react? Would he understand why I did it? I did something, Kelvin. My voice wavered, and I looked at him nervously. "What is it?" He kissed the back of my hand, his tenderness almost making me forget what I was about to confess. "I applied to be a surrogate," I said quietly, watching his face closely. His body went rigid, his eyes locked onto mine, searching for any sign that I was joking. "You're kidding, right?" he asked, his voice tight with disbelief. I bit my lip, shaking my head. "No." His eyes widened, and in an instant, he released my hand and stood up, the sudden loss of contact making me feel exposed and vulnerable. "Are you out of your mind?" His voice was loud, sharp. The shock and anger were clear. "Babe," I started, getting up to meet him. "You are not doing that," he snapped. "I have to." "The money, it's a lot," I tried to explain, my voice desperate. "Money?" His tone was harsh, almost cruel. "Do you even understand what you're saying? You'll be carrying someone else's baby for 9 months. 9 months, Eva. Please, just listen," I begged, but he stepped away from me, avoiding my touch. Eva, you're a virgin. How are you going to give birth to a child?" His words hit me like a punch to the gut, and tears welled up in my eyes. He was right. I hadn't even thought it through. I'd been so blinded by the money that I hadn't considered what it would mean to carry another man's child for 9 months and to go through childbirth. "I just wanted the money," I whispered, my voice breaking as the tears slipped down my cheeks. Kelvin's anger softened, and he rushed back to me, wiping the tears from my face. "We'll find another way, okay? I promise, you don't need to do this." He pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly against his chest. "I can't lose you," he whispered, his hand rubbing soothing circles on my back. "I can't lose you either," I murmured, but even as I said it, doubt crept into my heart. How long could I keep waiting? His words were comforting, but I was getting tired of promises. When I got home, Daniel and Sophia were sitting at the dining table, both of them crying. I rushed over, my heart pounding. "What happened?" "They took Mom to the hospital," Daniel said, his voice shaky. My stomach dropped. "No. What? Who? Why?" I stammered, dropping my bag as I bolted to my mom's empty room. Panic surged through me. "Who took her?" "Mrs. April," Daniel replied. Without another word, I ran for the door. In less than 10 minutes, I arrived at the hospital, my heart pounding against my chest. I spotted Mrs. April talking to the receptionist. "Mrs. April!" I rushed toward her. "Where's my mom? What happened?" "Calm down, Eva," Mrs. April said, her voice steady. "She had a heart attack, but they've put her in the intensive care unit." The world blurred around me, her words echoing in my head. Cold sweat broke out across my forehead. Before anyone could stop me, I ran toward the room where my mom was. My heart shattered when I saw her lying there, hooked up to machines, breathing through an oxygen mask. Tears streamed down my face as I stood beside her. "What were you doing, Mom?" I whispered, my voice cracking. "What were you thinking about?" I held her hand, almost shaking her, willing her to wake up. "Eva." Mrs. April gently pulled me back as nurses rushed in to check on her. "I can't lose her," I sobbed into Mrs. April's shoulder. "You won't lose her," she assured me, though her words did little to ease my pain. 3 hours later, I was back home with Daniel and Sophia. Kelvin had stayed with me at the hospital for a while, offering comforting words and gentle hugs, but for the first time, none of it made me feel better. None of it could fix this. I couldn't just sit and watch my mom suffer. I couldn't lose her too. Sitting in front of my laptop, I pulled up the page where I had agreed to be a surrogate. There was an address and a phone number listed. I stared at it for a moment, my heart heavy with guilt and desperation. Then I typed the number into my phone and closed the laptop. "I'm sorry, Kelvin." 3. The next day, I left Daniel and Sophia in the care of Mrs. April, our neighbor. My nerves were shot, but I had to do this. The address I typed into my phone led me to a massive, flawless building that screamed wealth. My heart pounded harder with each step as I approached the door. I rang the doorbell, and after a moment, a young woman in a skimpy uniform opened the door, barely acknowledging me as she stepped aside to let me in. I swallowed hard and walked inside. The place was immaculate, almost sterile in its perfection. The floors gleamed like mirrors, reflecting the bright silver walls. The entire house radiated luxury. Every inch of it screamed billionaire. "Miss Eva, I presume?" A smooth voice broke my awe, and I spun around to face a man. He was younger than I expected, tall, lean, with tan skin and sharp features. He couldn't have been more than his late 20s. My mind whirled with questions. Why would a guy like him need a surrogate? He could easily get any girl he wanted. "Miss Eva?" he repeated when I didn't respond right away. "Yes, but call me Eva, please," I managed to say. "I prefer to keep things strictly professional," he said, his voice elegant and detached. Please, have a seat. He gestured toward the living room. I hesitated for a moment before sitting on the sparkling white sofa, terrified that my mere presence might ruin it. I'll get straight to the point, Miss Eva, he said, sitting across from me. My heartbeat quickened as he flicked his fingers, and the woman in the skimpy uniform appeared out of nowhere with a file in hand. She handed it to him before disappearing again. If you're here, you already know the nature of this arrangement, so I won't waste time explaining. He handed me the file. You'll need to read through this and sign. I've already signed my part. I took the file from him, flipping through the 5 pages. My mind was racing. I didn't need to read it. I couldn't. If I did, I might change my mind, and I couldn't afford that. If you want time to think about it, he started. No, I interrupted, surprising both of us. I don't need time. Can I have a pen, please? You should read it first, he insisted, his tone firm. No, I'm good, I replied, forcing myself to stay calm. If I read a single line, I knew I'd back out, and I couldn't afford to. I needed the money too badly. I'm sure there's nothing here I can't handle, right? I asked, staring directly at him, waiting for his response. He tilted his head, studying me for a moment. That depends on you, Miss Eva. I'll take that as a yes? I smiled nervously and signed all 5 pages without reading a word. My hands trembled slightly as I handed the file back to him. God, I hope I can handle everything in there, I thought. Done, I said quietly. Very well, we're all set then. He stood up, and I followed suit. 100,000, I blurted out. He frowned, looking confused. Excuse me? $100,000, I repeated, my voice more confident than I felt. That's how much you'll pay me for this. He stared at me, his silence making me second-guess my boldness. Had I gone too far? But I needed to bargain high. This was going to cost me so much, it had to be worth it. After what felt like an eternity, he finally nodded. Okay. My eyes widened in disbelief. I hadn't expected him to agree so easily. I swallowed my excitement and pressed further. I need 20% up front before anything begins. His gaze darkened, and I feared I'd pushed too far. I don't like being given conditions, he said coldly, his hand slipping into his pocket, but his eyes remained locked on mine. But yes. I barely contained my relief. Inside, I was screaming with joy. This was my chance, my only chance. A smile crept across my face despite everything. It was nice doing business with you, mister, I faltered, realizing I didn't even know his name. For the first time, I saw a flicker of a smile, brief and barely there, but it was something. Leonard, he replied. Mr. Leonard, I repeated with a nod. See you in 2 weeks. Later that evening, I visited my mom at the hospital before heading to Kelvin's place. The thought of what I had to tell him weighed heavily on my chest. He wouldn't like it. He might hate me for it, but I had no choice. I couldn't back out now. We ate dinner, watched a movie, and cuddled, but I couldn't shake the unease. The guilt gnawed at me, and I kept imagining his reaction once I told him. When the movie ended, I could no longer hold it in. Kelvin, I whispered, my voice trembling. Yeah, babe. He turned to face me, his eyes soft and warm. Please forgive me. I repositioned myself, sitting up straighter. His entire demeanor shifted, a frown forming on his face. For what? His voice was calm, but I could sense the tension building. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I signed the contract. I accepted the job. I met with him today and signed everything. His eyes squeezed shut, and he took a slow, deliberate breath. The silence was deafening. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold, distant. It's over. The words hit me like a physical blow. My heart skipped painfully. What? It's over between us, he repeated, standing up. No, my voice broke. Kelvin, please. You can't. I can't do this, Eva. His voice rose and his frustration was palpable. I can't date a girl who's going to carry another man's child for 9 months. I can't. My heart was pounding, my chest tight with panic. Babe, are you really making me choose? I pleaded. My mom is in the hospital. We have no money. We can barely even eat right now. I asked you to wait, he shot back, his voice raw with emotion. Just a little more patience. For how long, Kelvin? I fired back, desperation creeping into my tone. If you go through with this, we're done, he said flatly, his words pierced straight through me. Please, babe, listen to me. Tears were streaming down my face now, my vision blurred by the heartbreak. No, he said firmly, shaking his head. I can't bear the thought of you with someone else. But I'm not with him. I'm just carrying his child. And then what? He asked bitterly. You think after 9 months you won't develop feelings? You think you can go through this and not be changed? I won't. I love you, I insisted, my voice cracking. I'm sorry, Ava. He turned away, his back to me. You can leave whenever you're ready. I sat there, heartbroken, my tears falling silently as I realized I'd lost him. 4. When I said I was going to lose a lot, I didn't think I would lose the one thing that gave my life meaning. We had been dating for 2 years, and in those 2 years, I never imagined what it would feel like without him. That's because I never planned to be without him. I was heartbroken. I was angry, mad even. Why couldn't he understand me? Why couldn't he wait for just 9 months? I cried my eyes out for 3 days nonstop. Then I spent the next 2 days mourning his absence, followed by 3 more days trying to pull myself together. And the next 5 days plotting and planning how to begin this job and figuring out how to lie to my mom. And just like that, 2 weeks flew by. $20,000 had been sent to my account as promised by Mr. Leonard. My mom had been discharged, and she was feeling better. I told her a big lie about getting a well-paying nursing job away from home. Thankfully, she believed me because I had been studying nursing before my dad passed away. Plus, she trusted that I wouldn't do anything reckless. But there I was, doing something reckless. I was ready to leave for the house, Mr. K. Leonard had prepared for me. A part of me wanted to change my mind, even though I knew it was too late. At first, the whole thing seemed absurd. Hell, it was absurd. On a normal day, I would shame anyone who became a surrogate for money. But there I was. Only then did I realize how wrong it is to judge people for what they do for money, because you never know what they're going through. I understood that now. I'll miss you, Daniel and Sophia cried, hugging me tightly. I'd miss them too. Truth be told, I'd only ever been away for school, and even that was only 5 months at most. But now, I had to be away for an entire year. 9 months of pregnancy and 3 months to get my body back to normal. I'll have lots of gifts for you guys when I come back, I said through teary eyes. They nodded and smiled. Take care, my dear, my mom said as she hugged me. Don't forget to call me often. I know you'll be busy, but find time to call. I almost laughed. Busy doing what? Carrying a baby? But I nodded and smiled. I will, Mom. After the emotional farewell, I left. Thoughts of Kelvin flashed in my mind, but I'd pushed them away. He hadn't called, texted, or replied to any of my messages. I took a deep breath and focused on staying calm throughout the journey. When I arrived at the address Leonard had given me, I was amazed. The house wasn't as big as his, but it was still impressive. Flowers lined the surroundings, and I couldn't help but smile. I couldn't believe I'd be living here, alone. As I walked into the house with my suitcase, my jaw dropped. I didn't expect it to be so beautifully decorated and furnished. Everything was white and sparkling. I left my suitcase at the door and wandered through the house, curious to see the rest. White sofas, a center table, a giant TV set, a small bar, and a dining table caught my eye. I walked through a door on the left and found myself in the kitchen. Everything was arranged perfectly. I opened the fridge and was shocked at how stocked it was, just like the cabinets and drawers. I was about to head upstairs when I noticed the glass doors leading to a backyard. I peeked through and saw a gorgeous garden and a pool. I rushed out to check it out. "Little paradise," I squealed. This was all mine for the next year. I couldn't believe it. I wouldn't have to spend a dime of my money on anything. I wanted to scream with excitement, but it was cut short when the doorbell rang. Frowning, I walked up to the door and opened it. "Hello, Miss Eva," a girl I'd never seen in my life greeted me. I scanned her from head to toe. I recognized the uniform she was wearing, and I couldn't help but notice how beautiful she was. I've always appreciated beauty. "Don't tell me Leonard sent you here," I said, half amused and half annoyed. "He did," she replied, "to help you with anything you need." I couldn't help but laugh. "Thank you, but I can take care of myself," I dismissed her kindly. "Miss Eva, you'll be pregnant soon, and Mr. Leonard doesn't want you doing any work," she explained, surprising me. "Leonard, that I'm not pregnant yet, so until then, I'll take care of myself." "I don't need a maid," I said with a smile. She looked worried but turned and left without another word. I closed the door and resumed my tour of the house. 5. It was the day for the tests and insemination. I was profoundly nervous. Mr. Leonard had come to pick me up, and our drive to the hospital was filled with silence. I was too busy trying to keep myself together to make conversation. When we arrived, the doctor led me to the lab, but I insisted on going alone. I needed some privacy. Thankfully, the doctor was a woman. She ran a few tests, all of which were normal, but suddenly I felt something uncomfortable, a sharp push deep inside me. I flinched, instinctively closing my legs together. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with surprise. "Are you a virgin?" My heart skipped a beat. "No," I lied, but her raised eyebrow told me she didn't believe it. "You are a virgin," she said firmly. Before I could protest, she continued, "Does Leonard know about this?" I opened my mouth to answer, but she cut me off again. "You see, a surrogate is supposed to show proof of a previous pregnancy. It shows you are fit for this. So, according to the surrogacy guidelines, you're not really supposed to be a surrogate." Panic gripped my chest. Did Mr. Leonard know about this? Would this cost me the contract? Was I going to lose everything? I really couldn't lose this. "But I guess your case is an exception," she then said, making me feel a little at ease. "Since you will be donating your own eggs," she said. Her eyes softened with sympathy, and she moved closer, sitting beside me. "I will tell you a little secret. This is going to be a bit hard for you, seeing as you are without any experience." I stared at my hands, unable to speak. "You should also help yourself. If you want childbirth to be less painful, you'll need to have sex," she added awkwardly. My face burned with embarrassment. "Don't be shy," she said kindly. "Just do it after we've confirmed you're pregnant. It'll help." I nodded, unsure of what else to say. "Thank you," I whispered. She smiled softly. "I'll see you in 2 weeks. Hopefully you'll be pregnant by then." The ride back home was as silent as the trip there. I stared out of the window, lost in thought for the first time since this all began. What had I gotten myself into? What would happen when I gave birth? What if I developed feelings for the baby and didn't want to give it up? But deep down, I knew I couldn't afford that luxury. When we arrived at the house, Leonard followed me inside. I was mentally and emotionally drained, and I collapsed onto the sofa. "Are you okay?" His voice cut through the silence, and I turned to look at him. "I'm fine," I muttered, trying to brush off his concern. "You don't need to worry about me yet." "I care about my workers, Miss Eva," he said, and the words stung more than I expected. Workers? Is that what I am? I knew I was, technically, but hearing it aloud felt strange. "You're doing a job for me, so yes," he replied matter-of-factly, still standing in place. "Why are you even doing this?" I blurted out, curiosity getting the better of me. "You could get any woman you want, get her pregnant, without having to spend all this money. Why go through all this trouble?" He looked at me, his face still as unreadable as ever. "That's none of your business, Miss Eva." I rolled my eyes, standing up and walking toward the minibar. "You're right. It's not," I said, grabbing a bottle of wine and a glass. "You can't drink that," he said sharply, suddenly appearing beside me and taking the wine from my hand. "Relax, I'm not pregnant yet," I replied, sitting on one of the bar stools. He was so intense. "You will be soon, Miss Eva," he said, his tone as serious as ever. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. He was undeniably handsome, but that only brought back the same nagging question, why this? And why did he always have such a blank, emotionless expression? "Don't you ever get tired?" I asked out of nowhere. "Excuse me?" he replied, his brow furrowing in confusion. "Why do you keep that stiff face all the time?" I knew it wasn't my business, but I couldn't help myself. "I'll be on my way now, Miss Eva," he said coldly. Ouch. "If you need anything, call me," he added before turning and walking out the door. I watched him leave, and as soon as he was gone, the loneliness crept back in. I pulled out my phone and stared at the wallpaper, an old selfie of me and Kelvin. My heart ached at the sight of his face. Was he thinking about me? Did he miss me the way I missed him? I clicked on his name and started typing, "Please come back to me." "I can't stop thinking about you." I stared at the message for a long time before erasing it. Instead, I typed, "I miss you," and sent it. 6. 2 weeks passed in a blur. Even though Kelvin hadn't replied to my text, and my heart ached with the weight of his absence, I had everything I needed: food, drinks, TV, and a big house to myself. I kept up my lie with my mom, telling her that the job was going well. She bought it, never questioning anything, and for that, I was thankful. On the way to the hospital for my insemination results, the silence between Mr. Two, Leonard and I was becoming suffocating. I didn't mind silence, but this kind made me anxious, so I decided to break it. "So, if this doesn't work out, what happens? Are we going to wait for my next ovulation, or are you going to fire me?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though my nerves were on edge. He kept his eyes on the road, not responding immediately. "I bet you won't find anyone like me," I added, attempting to lighten the mood. "I prefer you, Miss Eva," he said, surprising me. I frowned, confused. "Why, Mr. Leonard?" I asked, mimicking his formal tone. "Because," he glanced at me briefly, "you fit my description perfectly." "I don't know what that means, but it sounds like a compliment, so thank you," I said with a small smile. To my surprise, I saw the faintest hint of a smile on his face. It was brief, but it was there, and it made me smile in return. When we finally arrived at the hospital, I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Nerves rattled inside me as I waited for the doctor's verdict. "Congratulations," the doctor said, her voice filled with warmth. "You're pregnant." The news hit me like a freight train. My heart leapt into my throat. A baby was growing inside of me, and it wasn't mine or Kelvin's. A wave of overwhelming emotion swept through me. I turned to Mr. Leonard and was stunned to see him smiling. Not his usual half-smile or brief smirk, but a full, genuine smile. He looked happy, truly happy. It was the first time I'd ever seen that expression on his face, and it left me speechless. "Congratulations, Miss Eva," the doctor's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I forced a smile and looked at Leonard again, and still the smile hadn't left his face. Why did he want this child so badly? Questions buzzed around my head, but I kept them to myself. It wasn't my place to ask. I was here for a job, not to understand him. Back at the house, Leonard's expression had returned to its usual stoic demeanor. "So, congratulations, I guess," I said, tossing my purse onto the dining table and grabbing a juice box from the fridge. "Thank you, Miss Eva," he said in that formal tone again, making me roll my eyes. Did he ever relax? I tilted my head back, gulping the juice, then sighed. I was mentally and emotionally drained. When I looked up, Leonard was staring at me, but he quickly looked away when our eyes met. "Weird? He cleared his throat. "If you need anything." Yeah, I got it," I cut him off, walking toward the TV. It was just me and the screen now. I turned around when I noticed he hadn't left like he usually did. He stood there, lingering. What was up with him? "Do you need something, Mr. Leonard?" I frowned. He took a few steps closer until he was right in front of me. "I prefer you because I know my child will be beautiful," he said, holding my gaze for a moment longer than necessary before turning and walking out of the house. I sat there dumbfounded, unable to process what had just happened. Of all the things he could have said, that was the last thing I expected. The sound of my phone beeping brought me back to reality. My heart raced as I grabbed it from my purse, praying it was Kelvin. And it was. "I missed you too," his message read. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I smiled. Without thinking, I grabbed my purse and headed for Kelvin's house. I didn't know what I was doing, but I needed to see him. When he opened the door, his eyes widened in surprise. He just stared at me, not moving, not saying a word. His eyes flicked down to my stomach, and my heart sank. He stepped aside, allowing me in, but still, no words were exchanged. Why wasn't he hugging me, kissing me? He had just texted that he missed me, so why was everything so cold? Before I could dwell on it any longer, he pulled me into a kiss, deep and full of emotion. I wrapped my arms around his neck, returning the kiss with equal fervor. I had missed him so much. A month without him felt like a lifetime. His lips trailed down to my neck, sending shivers down my spine. Every kiss screamed, "I missed you." But as his lips left my skin, he abruptly pulled away. "We can't do this," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Why?" "We love each other," I whispered, my breath still uneven. "We're not together anymore." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. A tear slipped down my cheek, but I wiped it away quickly. "Look at me." I moved to stand in front of him. "Tell me you don't love me." Silence. "Tell me you're not already pregnant," he countered, his voice cracking with pain. My silence said it all. His eyes widened as the truth hit him. He ran his hand through his hair, pulling at it in frustration. I stood there, sobbing silently, unable to move, unable to speak. "Let's not hurt ourselves anymore." His voice was soft but filled with anguish. "We need to stay away from each other. It's what's best." I shook my head furiously, desperate to hold on to him. "Please, Kelvin," I begged, reaching for him, but he stepped back, putting even more distance between us. "I guess this is where our story ends," he said, his voice breaking. He looked at me one last time, his eyes filled with sorrow. "Goodbye, Eva." And just like that, he walked away, leaving me shattered on the floor. Again. 7. It was noon, but I couldn't bring myself to get out of bed. That was unusual for me. The pain was back, fresh, as the first day he broke up with me. It felt like my body was glued to the mattress, weighed down by everything I was feeling. I was shattered, inside and out. My stomach grumbled, but I wasn't hungry, not in the way that mattered. I knew I should be taking better care of myself, eating properly for the baby now growing inside of me, but I just couldn't summon the energy to do anything. Maybe I really did need that maid after all. The doorbell echoed through the house, breaking the stillness in my room. I groaned loudly, pulling the blanket over my head. The last thing I wanted was company. It was probably the maid again, returning because I was now officially pregnant. She'd give up eventually and leave when no one answered, I thought. But when the bell kept ringing, frustration boiled up inside me. I threw the covers off and trudged downstairs, ready to give whoever it was a piece of my mind. I reached the door and stopped short. Leonard was already inside. "How did you get in?" I demanded, my annoyance obvious. "Good day to you too, Miss Eva," he replied, a hint of dry humor in his voice. "I have a key, in case you forgot. This is my house." I rolled my eyes. "Right. Noted. You weren't answering the doorbell, so I let myself in," he continued, placing a large basket on the dining table. That's when I noticed what he was carrying, a basket full of fruits. "I brought this. The doctor said it's good for you," he said. I didn't know if it was the fruit or the fact that he thought to bring it, but a small smile crept onto my face. "Thanks," I murmured, glancing through the basket at the assortment of apples, oranges, bananas, and more. "What did you have for breakfast?" he asked, his voice stern but not harsh. "Nothing," I said, shrugging as if it were no big deal. "Nothing?" His tone shifted, a hint of anger in it. I glanced at him to make sure he wasn't actually mad. "Are you trying to—" "Relax," I interrupted, holding up a hand. "I'm not trying to starve your child if that's what you were about to say." I grabbed an apple and bit into it, the sweet juice reminding me of how long it had been since I ate something. "Miss Eva, you signed a contract." Yeah, I know what I signed." I cut him off again. "Do you?" "Why are you so grumpy, Mr. Leonard?" I asked, changing the subject. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if I'd caught him off guard. "Your girlfriend must be a saint for putting up with you," I added, biting into my apple again. He didn't respond, his face blank as always, but the silence was telling. Suddenly, he took 2 steps toward me, closing the distance between us. My breath hitched, and I instinctively took a step back, my eyes wide with surprise. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice quieter, as if he were genuinely concerned. "Your eyes are swollen." I lowered my gaze and quickly turned away, walking into the kitchen. "I'm fine," I lied, my heart aching. His simple question had unearthed all the hurt I'd been trying to suppress. "Were you crying?" He followed me into the kitchen, his presence unsettling. "I said I'm fine," I snapped, harsher than I intended. Normally, I would have apologized for being rude, but not today. Instead, I grabbed a glass and poured myself some water, hoping to drown the awkwardness that filled the room. The thought of Kelvin swirled in my mind, and what once had brought me joy now only caused me pain. How could I tell Leonard that I lost the man I loved just to fulfill his desire to have a child? My vision blurred, tears welling up, but I blinked them back before turning around. Leonard was still watching me, his expression unreadable. "I know it must have taken a lot for you to do this," he said softly, his tone surprisingly gentle. "I know you were desperate for money." I stiffened, feeling slightly insulted, but I kept my mouth shut. "Forgive my wording," he quickly added. "What I meant to say was, I understand you did this because you needed the money. I know it might not have gone well with the people around you, your loved ones." He paused as if carefully choosing his next words. "My point is, I won't meddle in your life, and I won't ask any more displeasing questions." His words left me speechless for a moment. "Thank you," I finally managed to say. He nodded, a slight acknowledgement. "I'll take my leave now. If you need anything, call me." I watched as he turned and walked out, the sound of his car driving away echoing in the quiet house. It wasn't until after he left that I realized I didn't even have his number. Great. I trudged back upstairs, ready to resume my moping, when my phone beeped from the bedside drawer. I picked it up, my heart skipping a beat when I saw the message from an unknown number. Now you have my number. 8. Another 2 weeks had passed, and although I was feeling perfectly fine, just a few cramps here and there, which were normal, I was beginning to lose my mind out of boredom. I know. I had everything anyone could want in a home, food, TV, a phone, even a pool. Yet I felt completely alone. The big house echoed with emptiness, and there was no one to talk to. Leonard hadn't visited since that last time. Not that I expected him to check on me every day, but still, I couldn't shake the loneliness that crept in. Today was different. I woke up feeling oddly ecstatic, which was weird. Shouldn't I feel sick or at least weak from morning sickness or whatever it's called? Instead, I felt full of energy. After my bath, I dressed in simple blue jeans and an off-shoulder blue blouse. I straightened my long black hair and let it fall freely over my shoulders. A touch of makeup, and I was ready. Arriving at Leonard's mansion, a stupid grin spread across my face as I prepared to surprise him. I rang the doorbell, eagerly awaiting the reaction I knew was coming. "Mrs. Eva," the maid greeted me, clearly surprised but stepping aside to let me in. I walked in like I owned the place and made myself comfortable on the luxurious couch, crossing my legs as if it were my own bed. "Mrs. Eva," came the familiar voice I was waiting for. I smiled up at Leonard, who stood in front of me, unmistakably shocked. He was dressed in a sharp black suit, probably on his way to work. I had to wonder what kind of job he had to afford all this luxury. How old was he, anyway? 25? "I told you to call if you needed anything. You didn't have to come here," he said, still recovering from the shock of seeing me. I got up and grabbed my bag. "I'm bored. If you're ready, let's go," I said, walking ahead of him. "Excuse me?" His voice stopped me in my tracks. "I'm tired of staying home, Mr. Leonard. I need to get out," I explained simply. "Aren't you supposed to be sick?" he asked, scanning my face. "Funny, I thought that too," I replied with a smirk. "Should I be worried? Should we visit the doctor?" he asked, surprising me with the concern in his voice. "What? No, everything is fine," I snapped, annoyed. "I didn't come here for this. Are you ready to go or not?" I pressed. He sighed, clearly frustrated, and ran his hand through his short black hair. That only made me smile more. "Fine," he finally agreed, and I squealed with excitement. We walked to his sleek black car, and to my surprise, he opened the door for me. "Ah, how gentlemanly of you," I teased. He rolled his eyes as I settled into the passenger seat. He started the car and pulled out of the driveway. "So, where do you want to go?" "To work, of course." "What?" He glanced at me, his expression hardening. "That's not part of the deal, Miss Eva. Work is my business. You cannot go there. Ever." His harsh words stung, and I turned to stare out the window, my mood instantly sour. Silence filled the car after that. The drive felt unbearably long, and I had no idea where he was taking me. Not that I cared anymore. I wasn't in the mood to speak to him. Finally, the car stopped in front of a big restaurant. Normally, I'd be excited, but my earlier joy had been crushed. Leonard got out and opened my door, but I didn't move. "Miss Eva," he called softly. I rolled my eyes and reluctantly got out, walking straight into the restaurant without a glance in his direction. Didn't he know how to apologize? He had annoyed me, or did he not realize that? A waitress led us to a table, and I sat down, staring at the beautifully dressed people around me. The place was so elegant, like something out of a ballroom. I glanced down at my casual outfit and suddenly felt out of place. "Don't let that bother you, Miss Eva," Leonard said, noticing my discomfort. A waitress came over with a notepad. "What would you like to order?" she asked, looking at Leonard like he was a piece of art. "What do you want?" Leonard asked me, but I continued giving him the silent treatment. He sighed and ordered something from the menu without consulting me further. I watched as the waitress practically drooled over him and rolled my eyes at her blatant flirting. "No, that will be all," he dismissed her coolly. He turned to me, about to speak, but I beat him to it. "You didn't have to be so." "I'm sorry," he interrupted. His words caught me off guard, and I relaxed into my seat, suddenly unsure of how to respond. Memories of Kelvin flashed in my mind, and my heart squeezed painfully. "Please don't cry. I didn't mean to speak harshly to you," he said, sounding almost desperate. I hadn't even realized I was crying until I felt the tears rolling down my cheeks. I quickly tried wiping them away, but the more I wiped, the more they fell. Leonard glanced around nervously, probably trying to avoid the stares we were drawing. I didn't even know if I was crying over Kelvin or Leonard at this point. "Ava, please," he said softly, and my heart stopped. Did he just call me by my first name? I wiped my tears, still in shock. "I'm sorry, I couldn't help it," I muttered, turning away to check my makeup. "Is it the pregnancy?" he asked, the corner of his lips twitching in amusement. "Oh, shut up." I pulled a tissue from my bag and dabbed at my face, catching a glimpse of his smile. "I see your sense of humor is still intact," he teased lightly. I rolled my eyes, trying to salvage my ruined face. "How do I look? Is my makeup messed up?" I asked, genuinely worried. His smile faded as he looked at me for what felt like an eternity. "You look just as beautiful, Eva," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. For the first time since we met, I really looked at him. His brown eyes were warm and striking, staring straight into mine. "Here's your order," the waitress interrupted, breaking whatever spell had fallen over us. I tucked my hair behind my ear and avoided his gaze, my heart still racing. What the hell was that? If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like and subscribe. Next part coming soon.